Hey everyone, I know it's kind of a weird time right now with everything that is happening. I don't even need to go into details about that. There's also a lot of weird things happening with movies and stuff. A lot of movies being delayed, a lot of movie theaters being closed. I know where I live, we are on a lockdown here in Michigan. Nobody can go anywhere unless it is like an essential thing like groceries or healthcare, medicine, something like that. All the movie theaters have been closed for a couple weeks now. Maybe we can have something like that, but nobody can go see movies, so we can only stay home and watch movies. And unless new movies are being released on video on demand or streaming service, we can't watch new movies. So now is a better time than ever to go back and watch older movies that we love. Maybe not older, but movies from the past. So I thought, I don't know, screw it. I will make a video of my top 5 movies to watch while you are on lockdown and quarantine, whatever you want to call it. So I just picked 5 that are good movies to lift your spirits or make you think about things that could be important at this time, or maybe to give some love to something that you may not have ever wanted to give commitment to before because you didn't feel like you had the time or the patience to watch it. So I picked some that make you feel good. I picked some that maybe might not make you feel good simply because a lot of people are being consumed by what is happening all the time. We're constantly being bombarded with news about it, of course, because it is important, but also it can get kind of overwhelming at times, which is why I included movies to kind of help you escape from that or make you feel, I guess, happier, distract you. However, I do know that there are some people who can only exist inside of those consuming thoughts about everything that's happening, and so maybe they want to watch movies like a movie like Contagion. I haven't seen it in a few years, but I feel like if I watched it now, I would be stressed. But I feel like there are a lot of people who might want to watch something like that right now to just really dive in as if we weren't already completely submerged in all of this information and chaos. So I honestly would recommend a movie like Contagion right now. I mean, I haven't seen it in a few years, but I feel like it has a lot of similarities to what's happening right now. That movie's not on my list, but I'd say it's an honorable mention, which brings me to some other honorable mentions I would have. So an honorable mention would be Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's that animated Spider-Man movie that came out last year. A lot of people saw it, a lot of people didn't see it because they felt like it was a kid's movie just because it's animated, which is not the case. Most of these kids' movies are actually called family movies because they're for everybody, not just the children. There are some movies that are very kid-oriented. I think Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is enjoyable for anybody of all ages, and it's hilarious and beautifully animated, but that's just an honorable mention. Another movie is Tangled. Trigger warning, the kingdom in Tangled is called Corona. And then Train to Busan is another honorable mention for me. It's a zombie apocalypse movie where the zombie disease or whatever spreads like super fast and they're all on a train, so like literally the whole train gets it. So yeah, that's might be another one of those that's a little anxiety inducing, especially at a time like this, but can also have a lot of messages about how humanity reacts in a crisis like that and functions in chaos and the selfishness that people can have even at times like that, as well as the kindness that they can exhibit as well. So those are just some honorable mentions. Now let's get into the actual top 5. So number 5 on my list is not a singular movie, so maybe this is actually like 27 through 5. So it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know you've probably seen some movies, if not all of them, because they're like the most popular movies on the planet, but why would I not recommend them? I, in the last year or so, have actually binge watched all of the Marvel movies that I hadn't seen, and I can say that Marvel officially owns my ass because that is my happy place. The movies are filled with action and well-written characters in a lot of them. Some moments that'll make you laugh, moments that'll make you cry, moments that'll make you stand up and cheer. It is 10 years of films I think 22 or 23 films or something like that, and they all connect with each other. You have so many movies to get yourself emotionally invested in the characters in these movies, and so when something happens to them or they're involved in a certain situation, it has even more of an emotional impact on you because you remember a moment that happened 10 movies ago and how it ties into that movie then. When I first watched them, I watched them in the order that they were released, which was fine. I mean, that's how everyone else who saw them in the theaters watched them. But the next time I rewatch it, I want to watch it in the order of the story, so like chronologically, with the first Captain America first, then Captain Marvel, and ending with Endgame in Spider-Man Far From Home. I think that would be an interesting way to watch it and really see the story progress chronologically. So I highly recommend watching that, especially if you haven't seen those movies. I mean, you can subscribe to Disney Plus for $6.99 a month, and I mean, what else are you doing? We are sitting at home. I mean, there are a lot of things to watch. These are just my recommendations, but I highly recommend having a marathon of all these movies. I promise you, it is very difficult not to get yourself invested in it. I mean, if you don't, you honestly don't have a heart. I'm just kidding, you do. We all have our personal preferences, but these movies are action-packed, blockbuster, fun entertainment while also having heart to them and interesting characters, interesting storylines that go places you might not expect, even if you've read the comic books, which I personally haven't. I would highly recommend giving the Marvel Cinematic Universe a watch. My personal favorite is Avengers Endgame, just because I have never had an experience in a movie theater like that where I was laughing, crying, cheering, screaming. So that one is my favorite, but mostly all of them are good in their own way. Okay, taking the number 4 spot on my list is Mad Max Fury Road. I almost didn't include this on the list because I truly feel like the world could be like this movie in 30 years, maybe 20 years. But it's such a good movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I think it could have some very important messages, even though the world hasn't ended. And in that movie, it's post-apocalyptic, and right now we're like, hopefully not in the midst of an apocalypse, but it certainly feels like it. Mad Max Fury Road is my favorite film of 2015, which was, at the time, very surprising to me because I thought that it was going to be just a stupid cash grab action movie based on some franchise from a long time ago. It would get like 30% on Rotten Tomatoes and I'd never hear about it again. And I was very much so proven wrong when I saw this movie, and it instantly became one of my favorite movies of all time. The action in this movie alone is enough to completely take your mind off of everything that you're thinking about, because it is so exhilarating and heart-pounding and full throttle the whole movie that you can't take your eyes off of it. This film builds a world that is so fascinating and colorful, unique, and specific that you can't help but to be intrigued. And then you pile that on with some high-octane, exhilarating action like this movie has, and you have yourself a damn near masterpiece. It might not have the most complex storytelling, but it tells storytelling through its action and through the characters' actions beautifully. It doesn't rely on heavy dialogue or a lot of character relationships. It manages to be a simple, straightforward film while also having some very complex messages. It kind of tells us that when you have nothing, everything is stripped away from you, even the simplest resources like water. It is so easy to give into your fear or to run away from doing what's right or doing what might be most productive or ethical for yourself and for the people around you and for your society and for your planet. But this film, it's about not getting into that fear and not letting those things consume you and drive you mad. It's about going back, fixing what's broken, and not ignoring it, not running away from it. And I think that could be a very important message right now, while also being an amazing action-filled film that can distract you from the chaos happening in the current world and kind of transports you into another one. So I highly recommend Mad Max Fury Road. You don't even need to see any of the other Mad Max movies. If I'm being real, honest, true tea time. This is one of my favorite movies, and I've never seen any of the other Mad Max movies. You really don't need to like this movie. It works as a standalone film for sure. All right, number 3 on my list is a movie you may have seen commercials for but not have seen a few years ago, and that is Searching. It stars John Cho and Deborah Messing from Will and Grace. It's sort of a mystery thriller movie about a man trying to find his missing daughter and trace her steps, find out where she was, but it's all shown through the screen of her MacBook laptop. We see everything that he clicks on, all the photos that he goes through. It's another one of those movies that tells its story through the character's actions, not necessarily through dialogue, because we don't have these scenes where there are some that are like over Skype and stuff like that, or like there's a webcam filming a couple people talking or something like that, just to kind of be convenient. But we don't necessarily have those scenes where there's prolonged dialogue between people. It's really a man searching on his daughter's laptop for clues, people to contact to try to find his daughter, and it's surprisingly one of the most exciting, unpredictable, and thrilling mystery movies that I've watched in the last few years. Definitely a very unexpected and surprising movie. When I saw the commercials for it, I thought it would just be like a stupid gimmick movie. Okay, we're talking a lot about movies where I had really low expectations. But anyways, based on the trailers that I saw for it, I thought it was just going to be a gimmick, kind of like that horror movie Friended, Unfriended, whatever, one of those. But it's so much more than that, and it has some twists and turns that I couldn't predict, and actually has some really emotional moments in this with some really good acting, actually. So definitely a surprising one, and I think a good movie to watch right now while we're all inside on lockdown and quarantine, whatever you want to call it, because all we really have to communicate at a time like this is our technology, our computers and our phones and our tablets and our smart TVs. This movie really shows how important and useful those things can be. And we're all staring at our computer screens anyway. I mean, I know I am, so seriously, it's really good. Go check it out. Number 2 on my list is a little Pixar movie called Inside Out. There were several Pixar movies I wanted to put on this list. I thought about putting Finding Nemo on here, Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., those classic movies that just make you feel happy, and if you were a kid then, they make you feel nostalgic. But I chose Inside Out, which only came out about 5 years ago, and instantly became one of my favorite Pixar movies of all time, and I think one of the most essential films to watch from the past decade, just because it is so important. I think especially at a time like this, when we are very isolated and by ourselves and really in our own thoughts, a movie like this can really help you, even if you're not a child, understand how your brain works and how it functions. A movie like this can really help you to understand why it's okay to feel something and feel something else maybe at the same time. It's really about the complexity of emotions, and it tells that in a brilliant way through these characters that live inside of this girl's head who represent these different emotions. There's a reason this movie was nominated for Best Original Screenplay at the Oscars in 2016, because it is so original, it is so unique and brilliant, the way that these emotions that live in her head interact, and when they interact, it causes certain things to happen on the outside to this girl. And now is a better time than ever to really check in on ourselves and our mental health and know why we're feeling certain things, and that just because we feel a certain way, it might not be the end of the world, no pun intended. Things do get better, and it's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to feel happy and sad at the same time. That's possible, and it's, I think, really possible right now to feel sad or to feel really complex emotions or to feel anger or fear. A movie like this confronts those things and makes them feel okay, not only to a kid, but to anyone that watches this film, whether you be 5, 25, or 95. So that is one that I really recommend out of all of Pixar's movies, which are all great, and any of them could go on this list, honestly, except maybe Cars 2 and 3. I haven't even seen those. I would definitely recommend Inside Out the most right now. So that's number 2. And now, number 1. I don't have... You get it. Number 1. Number 1 is a threefer. I started this list with number 5 being a franchise, the MCU, and I'm ending this list with another franchise, or more of a trilogy, actually, and that is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. If you've never seen these movies and you've always wanted to watch them, I'm sure you've thought, hey, I want to watch Lord of the Rings, but I don't have time. That's a lot of time to commit. We got nothing but time now. I mean, now is a better time than ever. It, why not watch all the extended versions? What is better than 12 hours of hobbits and trolls and wizards and magic rings and orc wars to provide the ultimate escapism for yourself right now with everything that's happening? This film series is the epitome of escapism. It fully transports you into another world. It grabs you along for the ride from the starting moments of the first film and keeps you fully invested to a point where, personally, I'm bawling tears in the last 10 minutes of the final film. The last half an hour. The Lord of the Rings movies are honestly some of the greatest films I've ever seen from a narrative standpoint, a technical standpoint, the cinematography, costumes, makeup, editing, acting, the screenplay, the visual effects, the production design, literally everything in all three of these films is top-notch cinema at its peak. There is a reason that these movies, all three of them, were nominated for Best Picture in the years that they came out, and there's a reason why Return of the King, which I personally think is the best one of the three, won Best Picture. It is hands down one of my favorite Best Picture winners of all time. So, my number one is the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and Return of the King. If you haven't seen these, now is the time. I watched these movies for the first time when I was probably 11 or 12 years old, maybe. I barely remembered them 10 years later. So I rewatched them with my brother like 5 or 6 months ago, and I fell in love with them all over again. Peter Jackson really takes the time to really flesh out all these storylines and characters. I mean, there's a reason that the extended versions of these movies are 4 to 4.5 hours long. He is so meticulous about these films, and it really shows. There's so much passion and so much love in all of them from the director and from the actors playing these roles, and you can really tell. And these are or will become 21st century classics, hands down. These are some of the best films ever made. I know it's a series that people often put to the side because it is so much content. They are 3-hour movies. The extended versions are close to 4 hours, if not more. You're talking 12 hours of content. You can split it up over 3 days or watch it all in one day if you're really committed. I couldn't do that. I watched one a day. One every couple days, I think, maybe. But we're all inside. We have the time. So that would be the number one thing that I would have to recommend. I think all of the movies on this list are fantastic films, really well made, and they can make you feel all sorts of different things. They deliver all sorts of different messages that I think could be important right now. So give those a watch if you haven't seen any of them, or if you have seen them, you could rewatch them right now. I don't ever make videos like this, but I really like movies and have a lot of time on my hands, so I thought, why not put something like this together and maybe get us all talking about movies that we love. That's all I want, is to just spread some positivity. It's a really hard, scary, often negative time, and I mean, who knows when we're going to get a new movie in the movie theater again. I mean, are the Oscars going to even happen next year? Are there going to be any more movies that come out? It's just a time of a lot of uncertainty, but I think what is certain are the movies from the past that we love, the movies from the past that we haven't seen and have always wanted to watch. Now is a better time than ever. Just trying to spread some of the things that are good and some of the things that we love and that I love. Just make people happy, because that's what's important. Thanks for watching.